I'm Kristen Hansen. I'm the cat programs manager at Austin Pets Alive, and until very recently I was the Ringworm program manager. So today we're here to talk about one of my favorite subjects in the entire world, which is how to save ringworm cats. This is going to be kind of more of a 101 presentation. If you're looking for more advanced knowledge, we'll be doing some of that in the Cats Life-Saving Masterclass tomorrow. This is more built for if your shelter or organization does not have a ringworm program, if you're still declining on ringworm cats or euthanizing ringworm cats, this is square one. So step one, let's talk about adoptions. And I see the fear in some of y'all's eyes, so we'll back up a little bit before that. But in all seriousness, if you are holding cats back from adoption purely because they have ringworm, they have nothing else wrong with them, stop that. Stop it right now. These are very adoptable cats, especially in the wintertime. The vast majority of cats who have ringworm over the winter are going to be perfect, fluffy kittens. And you can safely and responsibly send them out into the community. People will want to adopt them even knowing the risks of catching it and knowing the extra care that they need. You just have to let people do it. So, on to the real step one, become a fungus detective. So the first step in any ringworm examination and diagnosis is to look at the cat. Don't pull out a woods lamp yet, don't pull out cultures yet, don't pull out any of that. Look at the cat. You want multiple sets of eyes on the cat throughout its stay with you. If one person on your team is the best ringworm spotter in the entire world, but they're the only one who ever looks for ringworm on the cat, stuff is going to get missed. If you have fosters and counselors and med techs all trained to notice signs of ringworm, that's going to catch far more. Consider the history of the cat and the health needs of it right now. Did it come from a hoarding case? Or, as we found out, from a hurricane? Is it very young? Is it very old? Is it very sick? Is it very stressed? Those are all things that are going to reduce the cat's immune system and make it much, much more vulnerable to ringworm. Use your hands whenever you're examining a ringworm cat. A lot of people like to wear gloves with ringworm cats. I absolutely do not subscribe to that. Your fingers are far more sensitive than your eyes. When you're petting the cat and feeling its fur and running your hands along it, you're going to feel those scabby areas that need closer attention. And you're going to feel them a lot faster than you're going to notice them with your vision. As far as what the signs are, my lovely assistant Brandy here has a very textbook case of ringworm. Ringworm presents usually as areas of hair loss. They are not always circular, but frequently are. Unlike things like flea allergy dermatitis or over-grooming or food allergies, ringworm causes areas of hair loss with very well-defined edges. So you're not looking for kind of diffuse hair loss all over a big region. The skin is prototypically crusty, but it can be inflamed or moist, especially if that crusty scab has just fallen off of the spot. And the areas that you're going to concentrate on for your first examination are typically the face, ears, feet, and tails. Ringworm is almost entirely a contact-based disease. Cat to cat, person to cat, cat to person. It can spread by the environment, but almost entirely, much more than we've been led to believe, it is because of contact between living beings. So you're going to look at those areas where the cat contacts other cats. And always, especially when you're having a problem with ringworm outbreaks, assume that the cat has ringworm until they prove to you that they don't. You will catch far more cases that way and prevent more outbreaks in your catteries. So, on to using a woods lamp to investigate. There are two main portions of this. First is invest in good equipment. I've written up here, we use a Spectraline EA160. I'm not officially endorsing that, but it has served us well. A good woods lamp will run you about $100, anywhere between $100 to $200. It is a lot of money up front for a lot of organizations, but it is a workhorse, and if you treat it well, it will last for years. Find a dark room. If your examination room is, you turn out the fluorescent lights, but there's still a lot of daylight streaming through the window, that's going to put you 5 steps back on noticing ringworm. It's much, much easier if you can put a towel over the window and darken the room. Give the lamp ideally 2 to 5 minutes to warm up. Ringworm fluoresces because the fungus causes changes in the structure of the hair itself as it's growing. Though the changes cause it to fluoresce under very specific wavelengths, and if the woods lamp has time to warm up, it has time to dial in on those wavelengths, and you'll get a stronger fluorescence and an easier to notice fluorescence. And hold the lamp less than or equal to 4 inches from the cat. If you are holding the lamp, or if you have a helper holding the lamp and they're holding it a foot away from the cat, that's immediately going to make it much, much harder to notice. As far as method goes, I recommend starting at the tail and working your way forward, not because necessarily you need to start at the tail, but because it reminds you that you need to be pushing the fur forward as you're going. Don't wave the light over the top of the cat and just look for anything that leaps out at you. You actually want to look down at the skin, because a lot of times the same structure changes that cause the fluorescence also cause the hair to be very brittle. So it's broken off at a lower level, at a shorter length than the hairs that are in the main hair coat. So if you don't push the fur forward and look closer to the skin, you're going to miss them. You're looking for an apple green glow. Other things do glow under blacklight, but typically you're looking for kind of a candy apple green, not a normal apple, unfortunately. Be wary of false positives. 2 really, really common false positives: medications, such as doxycycline, and urine or feces. Those are medications, or those are things that glow kind of a yellowish color. The quickest way to tell if you're looking at something like that, first of all, it's going to be a diffuse glow. When you're looking at ringworm, you're looking, again, for individual hairs. The fluorescence that ringworm gives cat fur does not spread to the skin, it doesn't wipe off, it stays contained distinctly to the hair from root to tip. If you're looking at kind of a diffuse glow all over a cat's mouth and you know that the cat is on URI meds, probably doxycycline glow. And then keep a paper towel, some water, or some alcohol nearby so that you can gently try to wipe it away, because ringworm glow does not wipe away. And then dust is also a thing that can glow. On the subject of false positives, ringworm does not cause skin to glow. If you're looking at glowing skin or glowing crust, you're looking at something else. But that said, with scabs, a lot of times the initial stages of ringworm, you'll get scabbing or crusting, and it's hard to tell whether that's a scab from a kitten playing too hard or a scab from true ringworm. The trick to that is to very gently start peeling the scab up a little bit. If it seems to hurt the cat or if it starts bleeding, it's a scab, you can stop. If, however, it comes up pretty easily, a lot of times what you'll be rewarded with is nice apple green glowing hairs underneath it that have been growing, or that have been forming there. This is my friend Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie has another very textbook case. On the left, you can see what initially caused me to want to blacklight her. That nice little crusty spot right on the top of her head. Again, that's a common place. She's a kitten. She headbutts other cats and cuddles with them. And then whenever you turn the woods lamp on, you can see that really nice, distinct glow from the root to the tip of the hairs. This, on the other hand, is my friend Panini, who does not look ringworm positive under visual light. So this is the reason that you combine both visual exams and woods lamp exams. You can see from the hairs around Panini's eyebrows and around her eyes, those are those same apple green glowing hairs, and that means that the fungus is still hanging out in the hair follicles, and still infectious. Not all ringworm appears woods lamp positive, especially if you have new technicians doing the examination, or you're not used to it, or the cat's very dirty. Especially in kittens, sometimes they're covered in poop and it's hard to notice what's poop and what's actually ringworm. This is Wigglytuff, who had a nice textbook lesion right in the middle of his forehead, and it didn't glow under blacklight. So even though it didn't glow under blacklight, he ticked literally every other box for textbook ringworm case, so we went ahead and treated him anyway, and just didn't combine him with cats that we knew had ringworm or had woods lamp positive ringworm. But Kristen, I hear you say, where's the place for cultures? Many of you might know, we at APA do not use cultures in determining whether a cat has ringworm or not. Cultures are costly. Cheap DTM plates will cost you $1 each. You use at least 3 for every ringworm positive cat, and that's assuming that they immediately become negative the next time you test them. You also spend staff hours or technician hours, if you send it to another lab, looking and reading the cultures. And they're time consuming. That's 3 weeks of limbo for both you and the kitty, up to 3 weeks, because that can be the upper limit of how long it takes the ringworm fungal culture to pop positive. That's 3 weeks of you don't want to combine them with your ringworm population and definitely give them ringworm, and you don't want to combine them with your normal population and risk an outbreak in your cattery. Where are you going to put the cat during that time? They're also, unlike many of us have believed for years, not a silver bullet. A positive fungal culture or a negative fungal culture can be an error just as easily as a woods lamp test. Human error is just as easy due to poor sampling, poor plating, incorrect reading, or unexperienced technicians. These are all things that you do need to think about with cultures. Contaminant growth can also ruin your results and make you start from square one. Proper woods lamp use and a healthy dose of caution in your diagnosis can be enough. That's not to say that I don't think cultures are useful diagnostic tools, but in a shelter environment, whenever we're trying to save as many cats as we can with the money that we have, they're not worth the investment. They don't give you enough extra information. On the right is a excerpt from a recently released clinical consensus guidelines from the World Dermatology Association. Dr. Karen Moriello was the lead author on this paper. Looking at it was a literature review of all of the literature that's out on ringworm right now, and looking at studies where they looked at the woods lamp fluorescence of different cats, 91 to 100% of cats with spontaneous ringworm fluoresced positive under blacklight during these tests. And in cats with experimentally induced ringworm infections, 100% tested woods lamp positive. That's where the assuming that the cat has ringworm going into it helps a lot, because in experimentally induced infections, the technicians who were looking for ringworm knew that the cat had ringworm and were just trying to find it. So that helps you catch more. Step 2, find fungus fosters. But Kristen, I hear you say, why start with fosters? Start with fosters because you can literally go to your hotel tonight, send out an email, and get a ringworm program started. Cats get better faster in foster. There's less stress for them in a foster home. There's less re-exposure risk. They're not being exposed to different kinds of ringworm. They're not being exposed to other illnesses that further limit their immune system. And they're also getting snuggles, which in a serious way helps boost their immune system and helps give them attention and love and helps them thrive. They also get adopted faster. Just like people sell their kids Girl Scout cookies on Facebook, people market their kittens on Facebook. You don't have the bandwidth as an organization necessarily to market every single kitten with the level of detail and attention and love that a foster is going to be able to. This is data pooled from our last 3 years of where cats with ringworm infections at the time of adoption were adopted from. You can see our ward takes up a good percentage of that, but fosters are almost consistently 2/3 to 3/4 of cats who have active ringworm infections, who are disclosed about that at the time of adoption, who get adopted. But what if they catch it, I hear you say? They might. Be candid about that. Don't tell anyone there's no way you will catch ringworm. It's just a fact of life. What we usually recommend is keeping the cats in a tiled bathroom or unused laundry room or somewhere with tile, linoleum, and easily cleaned surface. Keep a set of ringworm clothes outside that door. This can be scrubs, or this can be a large sweatshirt, sweatpants, and some flip-flops that you put on over your clothes and go in to feed and play and treat the kittens. Frequent hand washing, like we should all, I hope, be doing during this nasty flu season, is also very helpful. And following deep cleaning procedures weekly, taking everything out of that room, scrubbing with detergent, disinfecting with a diluted bleach solution, doing that weekly or bi-weekly also helps cut down on the risk to the foster's family, the risk to the foster themselves, etc. And then let people surprise you. I, in my own home, foster ringworm cats, of course, and they sleep in my bed with me. They cuddle in my warm towels whenever I take them out of the dryer. I get ringworm sometimes. I don't care. We have, just off the top of my head, about a dozen fosters that I can think of right now who have the same attitude. People will surprise you with their willingness to take on ringworm cats and to take on this, especially if you have good ways to convince them to do it. Tell them the truth whenever you're recruiting. Tell them that they're actively saving lives. 30 miles from Austin, we tell people that cats are being euthanized for having ringworm. And especially in Central Texas, ringworm is a thing that people get at least once or twice when they're kids. So when they're able to think back on that and think, oh, I had that in middle school once, it wasn't that bad, and then you say, this cat is going to be euthanized if we can't take them in, that touches people's hearts and it makes them want to help. Use before and after pictures to motivate people. This is Chupacabra, who grew into quite a beautiful creature. But whenever fosters see the transformation that can take place in truly crusty ringworm cats, it motivates your heart. Fosters foster because they want to be part of helping. They want to be part of changing the life of another being. And you can't say that that's not a transformation. Offering incentives is also helpful. If you have extra litter or food that you can offer people, that helps. If you have gift cards or donations that you can't use as a shelter, when we get carpeted cat towers, we can offer those sometimes. Fun social events like happy hours. If anyone was here for Cassandra's talk last session, she talked about happy hours for fosters and volunteers. That's another good place. Make them feel like they're part of a community. Tying into that, keeping them around. Be empathetic, vocally appreciative, and present for support and advice. When they have questions, make sure that you're answering them and that you're being empathetic while you're doing so. The more you do ringworm in a shelter environment, the more blasé you get about it. But whenever a foster is trying it for the first time, it's really scary. Be cognizant of that and make sure that you're making people feel heard. That alone can retain fosters who would otherwise walk. Giving them verbal and written information and instructions on cleaning, treatment, what to tell adopters, what to expect as far as timeline, that all helps. Using social media. This has been a great success for us this year. We started a Ringworm Fosters Facebook group. And people post everything from, the post on the left is Lily, who is a long-stay senior kitty in our ringworm ward, who is in renal failure. A foster recently took him in and posted a really happy picture of him laying in bed saying he finally hit 7 pounds. And then our management team on the ringworm side is also on that Facebook page and giving feedback and answering questions. You can see The bottom comment is from our ringworm assistant manager saying, he was so consistently at 6 pounds for forever. I'm so glad he's doing so well. Thank you so much. On the right is a different side of the coin, which is a foster posting, hey, I did my kitten's first ringworm bath and it went really badly. Please help. And then there's a whole, like at least a dozen comments below where it cuts off of experienced ringworm fosters and the ringworm team saying, hey, I had a kitten who reacted exactly like that. Here's what helps. Provide tangible support for your fosters as well. Info sheets and FAQs to give to interested adopters, help talking down concerned family members off the ledge, etc. And also dip days, which we'll come back to shortly. Growing into a dedicated ringworm space. You don't need to start here, and if you don't have a ringworm program already, you shouldn't try to start with a big ward or a big adoption and treatment center. That's a goal, but saving cats starts with fosters and starts with people. Start with an in-between space, somewhere for cats to wait for foster in between when you pull them from the euthanasia room and when they go to the foster's home. And get creative with your solutions and use what you have. Do you have an Airstream trailer? Do you have a garage or a workshop space? Do you have an empty office or a conference room with pop-up kennels? These are all solutions that we have used when we didn't have a dedicated ward. And these are all perfect solutions for temporary areas for the cats to live. And then don't block these areas off from the public. Let visitors in, let volunteers in, let fosters in. Take caution, but don't give in to the stigma. Don't give in to the tendency to glove up and wear a gown to go into the ringworm spaces. Because all that says to the public is that these cats have Ebola. If you think about it, every layer of protection that you put between you and the kitten is a layer of emotional distance. You holding a kitten in a hazmat suit is a very different sensation than you holding a kitten in your bare hands. It touches your heart differently. And it also makes it way less scary. Ringworm can't be scary whenever it's on a tiny fuzzy creature who's yelling at you because they haven't eaten recently, or recently enough for their taste. On the subject of caution, visitors. Expect lower numbers. Don't expect to have the same kind of foot traffic that you do in your normal cattery because it will scare some people off. But spend more time with them. With ringworm visitors, your goal should always be quality over quantity. Make sure that you greet them at the door, you answer their questions, you are empathetic whenever they're scared of like, well, what if I get ringworm from walking in? Make sure that you answer those questions and tell them like, hey, you have cats at home, all you have to do is wash your hands, and if you're cuddling with the cats, just change your clothes before you cuddle with your cats at home. Never try to talk people into ringworm who are set against it. That's a path to trouble. We try to market ringworm and make it way less scary, but we're never going to push it on someone who doesn't want it, because that's not going to end well for them, the cat, or you. Don't discourage window shoppers either, especially with ringworm, and in no-kill generally. Every visit is an educational opportunity, because whenever Jenna comes into the ringworm ward just to look around and play with some kittens, and then Jenna goes home, and Jenna's Aunt Mabel freaks out because the cat she adopted turns out to have ringworm. Jenna is able to be a source of information and be a source of comfort to that person. Step 3 is figure out how you're going to treat it. Oral antifungals are useful, especially if you have a vet or access to a vet. This is kind of a comparison of what the cost of the most popular antifungals are through our clinic supplier. We have chosen terbinafine because it is just about equally as effective as itraconazole and much, much less expensive. Things like itraconazole and Itrafungol, which is compounded itraconazole, are much more expensive. Terbinafine, anything that you're trading in slight efficacy, you're getting back in just savings. And then griseofulvin, I would never recommend because it's that expensive. The biggest thing is lime sulfur dip. In a shelter environment, the topical of choice is lime sulfur dip. It's super cheap. If you bathe a cat twice weekly for 8 weeks, your average per cat is going to be about $5.19. That's pretty doable. There are age, weight, and health limits that you do have to be cognizant of, but you can use those to your advantage. For example, if you have fractious, scared, or sick cats who can't get a full bath like the little lady in this picture is getting, you can give them spot treatment or a sponge bath and end up using less lime dip. Get creative with your tools. Use an unused litter box as a bathtub, and use toothbrushes to clean the areas around their face and eyes without getting it into their eyes. These are all ways that you can do it without having like a dip room or special equipment to do it in. And then for those who are working at organizations that don't have a vet on staff, the good thing about lime sulfur dip is that it can be obtained without a prescription. But be cautious. Dip days, back to this. So ideally, you dip your cats, everyone on site and in foster, twice a week. The biggest success point we have had is inviting fosters to bring their cats in to be treated by us. The deal is basically you house the cats, you give us that kennel space back, and you bring them in on this day between 12 and 5 p.m. and we'll do the bathing for you. There are dozens and dozens of fosters who are totally willing to deal with ringworm in their home. They just don't want to bathe a cat, which, understandable. Enlist a rotating team of 2 to 4 dedicated volunteers who can help you with this, especially if you don't have staff to dedicate to a ringworm program. This can be a lifesaver. This is one of my favorite volunteers in the whole world, one of my favorite people in the whole world, dipping a cat. And then make it fun for volunteers and fosters. Provide snacks, play music, make jokes with each other. When you have availability, do outside social events. I take these volunteers to dinner twice a year and make sure that they feel appreciated and that they know how much we rely on them. Tracking progress is really, really important with ringworm treatment in a shelter environment. This is an example of a treatment sheet that we've used. It's pretty simple. It's just pictures of the left side of the cat and the right side. We circle where the cat has ringworm and then scribble it in as the cat heals. If new spots pop up, then we circle the new spots. That gives us a good tracking measure of how the cat's progressing and how the cat's doing. On the back of the sheet, we write notes from each of their checkups. We do checkups typically every 2 weeks or so for all the cats. And then write steps backwards, now has ringworm on ears as well, or has woods lamp positive hairs on belly, had an ear infection and caused her ringworm to progress, or doing much better, skin is looking healthy again. Step 5, finally, let them get adopted. No, really, 431 cats with active ringworm infections went home from APA in 2017. That's out of, on the level of about 1,000 ringworm cats total that we took in. You can see that during the summer months, you are going to have fewer adoptions, but the winter months are going to be your biggest time. Because during the winter, that's not kitten season. You're going to have a ringworm program full of healthy, perfect, fluffy kittens who have a little bit of fungus. And that is like candy to people. During Christmas, whenever people want to bring home a new family member, they want to surprise their kids with a kitten for the first time, they're much more willing to look into what ringworm requires rather than just walking away at the first sign. Advertising ringworm cats. What works really well for us is being funny about it and being punny about it, which I love. So we do ringworm specials. The one on the left, ringworm in the new year. People laugh, and then they're like, oh, they must have a good sense of humor. I'll check it out. And then playing into popular culture, Stranger Rings. We've also done Lord of the Ringworm and Harryless Potter and The Bald and the Beautiful. People get into it because for the same reason that you guys are laughing. It makes you smile and makes you less afraid of it. It's a thing to laugh at, not a thing to be scared of. For the adoption process, as with fosters, honesty first. Share the ringworm treatment tracker. Tell the fosters that, or tell the potential adopter how they're doing, that, you know, recently they've taken a few steps backwards, but in a home environment, they are going to do better. They're going to have a shortened treatment time 9 times out of 10. Use the waiver. We do require a waiver so that people sign that they understand what we've told them about ringworm, that they understand that it is possible for it to be transmitted to them, to their pets, or to their kids. That reinforces for them that they are taking home a cat who has some medical needs. So that makes sure that we're being responsible in telling people what the health status is of these cats, while not necessarily scaring them away from this by presenting this waiver first thing. Walk them through each step of the healing process. Allot 10 to 15 minutes more time for your ringworm adoptions than for normal ones, just so that you can talk people through the process of getting a cat better from ringworm. If possible, if you have the funding, send some treatment home. We send 3 weeks of Lyme dip and 3 weeks of whatever course of terbinafine they're on at that time. And then instruct them to follow up with a private vet afterwards so that they know that they may require more treatment afterwards. And make them feel as important as they are. Make sure that whenever someone goes home with a ringworm cat, they know that they have saved the life of that cat and the cat who's going to take their place. People, again, want to be part of saving a life and making the world better. Make it clear that that's what they're doing. Post-adoption support is vital with ringworm adoptions. Give written versions of all the info that they can reference whenever they go home and at 3 a.m. think, oh, I forgot what she said about how to clean the tile. They can reference that written sheet. They can also email our ringworm team directly. They get an email address that they can contact at any time with questions. Even after the treatment that we send home runs out, we will help them. And they know that we will help answer questions. And then work to educate the community to support adopters. That goes back to the visitors subject. If your adopter brings home a kitten and their Aunt Mabel freaks out about, oh, you're coming to visit next week, your car in the driveway will infect my 5 dogs with ringworm. But if Aunt Mabel has visited the ringworm ward and is at least a little bit knowledgeable about what's happened or what ringworm is, that makes it much easier for that adopter to be able to keep those kittens. It takes a village. This is an example of the FAQ sheet that we send home with ringworm adopters. The first page is mostly just frequently asked questions, all of the things like, could I get ringworm? What do I do if I do? Second page is Lyme dip instructions. And at the very bottom, you'll see the email address that we give them to contact us directly. But hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Go out and save some crusty cats. Thank you, guys.